this. All right, thank you. I appreciate it.
We're doing it until 9 a.m. We would really love to take your donations.
Interesting that you would have Zadrunas Silgauskas because Z's a good friend of the foundation as well, and he's got friends that have cystic fibrosis and have lost some folks with cystic fibrosis. So right there, that's Nate Cross from the Cystic Fibrosis Foundation here in Northeast Ohio. We are doing your On Your Side holiday drive. As I said at the top of the show, I lost my brother 10 years ago to cystic fibrosis. We do an annual golf outing at Firestone every year. We've raised over $2 million in the last 10 years towards research, towards finding a cure for cystic fibrosis. We've had some great runs where we've made some great strides, and Great Strides is actually one of the names of the events we do, a walking event every year, but great strides towards we're trying to find a cure for cystic fibrosis, but in the meantime, we're finding drugs that are suppressing all the problems with CF. And you might say, well, what is CF? It's a lung deficiency. It's a pancreatic deficiency. It's, we had a little girl I did a story on last night, and if you're trying to figure out what it's like to live your life as a cystic fibrosis patient, take a straw, not a bendy straw, a regular straw, bend it in half, and then take full breaths through that straw. Every breath for a cystic fibrosis patient is like that. It's the #1 genetic killer of young adults and kids in the United States. But if you go back and look at the research we've done, and this is like where all this money comes back into play, 800-658-5370, 800-658-5370 is the number you can call in here at the station if you want to, or, go to our mobile app. When my brother was born in 1957, they thought he had pneumonia. And they thought all these kids had pneumonia and they couldn't diagnose us. Now they can pretty much diagnose prenatal if you have CF, which is amazing when you think about all the things we've gone through. If you were born in the 30s or 40s with CF, you were done. You were lucky if you made it 6 months. By the time the 50s rolled around, early 50s, if you made it to 1 or 2, something like that, then it was kindergarten. And then as my brother got older, we started finding more and more things that were helping cystic fibrosis patients. I mean, you're talking about taking 40 or 50 pills a day. You're breaking down enzymes. Your lungs don't clean right. I mean, really, that's what it's all about. It's like being congested for a normal person times 10 and still trying to get it out. Hey, that's awesome, Kenny. What was that?
Girlfriend's doing a project on this at school, studying to be a nurse and everything.
Awesome.
And one of her projects in a class, she had to pick a topic and do some research on it. And it just so happens, I had no idea we were going to be talking about this today, that she did it on cystic fibrosis. So there it is. Obviously, as much money as we can raise for this, in reading some of these notes on here that she put on here, it's for a great cause. And if memory serves me correct, isn't this what Boomer Esiason's kid had too, Andy?
Gunnar has it too, yeah.
Yeah, so, there it is. So, and I think according to one of the notes on here, if you're born with cystic fibrosis, the average lifespan is between 30 and 37 years old, so we need to raise some money to increase that.
So here's where we are. Right now, it's 37 is the average life expectancy. My brother made it to 45.
Wow.
And so now, again, when he was born, he would have been lucky to make it to kindergarten and then maybe make it to junior high school.
Right.
I mean, he made it to 37 or 47. And what's weird is you have somebody come up to you and you say, oh, you lost your brother, and this was 10 years ago. And you're like, oh, my God, how old was he? And I was like, well, he's 47. And they're like, oh, my God, what happened? I go, he had cystic fibrosis. And then their eyes light up because they're like, wow, I can't believe he made it to 47. Yeah. Well, now they found a new drug called Kalydeco, which is like a game changer for cystic fibrosis patients, but it only affects 5% of the folks out there that have cystic fibrosis. So like within the last 2 years, they've taken this drug called Kalydeco and other drugs and mixed them together. And now we're talking about being able to, live a life that can take you through to geriatric care. Now that we found all these other drugs that can probably help up to 60% of the patients there. There is no cure for cystic fibrosis, but the medicines and the things that we've been doing to fund research to get this thing done, keep going. It keeps hope alive for so many families with these kids. See, after that, it was a death sentence that you used to hear you had cystic fibrosis. Now we're talking about geriatric. I almost cried the first time I was at a lecture when I heard about the fact that we're talking about geriatric care for cystic fibrosis patients, which was my brother's dream. I mean, my brother knew he had CF. He knew it was going to take him down at some point, had a double lung transplant, and we spent 6 months in the hospital and unfortunately didn't make it. But, I had so many talks with him, and we talked about, what's important and what's not important and, beyond sports and all those things. And one of the things he always said to me, please, let's try to find a cure for this. If it's not going to happen in my lifetime, can you try to make it happen in your lifetime? And there's a book out there called Cystic Fibrosis in the 20th Century, written by Carl Dorschek, who was a doctor here in Cleveland. And one of the chapters in there my brother wrote, it's called A Patient's Perspective. And it was like a guideline to his afterlife, but we didn't realize it at the time when he wrote it.
Like the impact that it would have.
Yeah, it was a message, and it was a message to, how to treat your kids. And CF is one of those weird things where, in some ways like sickle cell. Like if you see somebody with sickle cell, you don't know they have sickle cell.
Well, my cousin had sickle cell. He died from it.
Yeah.
Going through a transplant on the table. He passed away from it, yeah.
Yeah, but would you have known that he had sickle cell?
No, you really don't know, until like you see them and then, you ask what's going on and they got to go and get the blood transfusion and stuff like that when they got to the hospital.
And so
it's kind of weird,
And so maybe next time, here's what I want to do. Let's get rid of sickle cell. Let's get rid of cystic fibrosis. These are all money research things. That's the other thing too. And I'll leave you with this last point on CF. One of the things that my brother and I had always talked about was, what is cystic fibrosis and why do we still have it? And I've talked to a bunch of doctors and I've talked to some research people. It's about money. We're down to money on this thing. It's about money and research. And the weird thing is, Nate, how many people have CF in the United States alone? 30,000 people have it in the United States, okay? If more people had cystic fibrosis, and by the way, there's Nate standing over there. He'll answer the phone if you dial 1-800-658-5370. If more people had cystic fibrosis, we wouldn't have cystic fibrosis at all, because the drug companies would then start pouring money into research and pouring. Great point. It drives me nuts. It drives me crazy. Go ahead, Jackie.
Well, Andy, I was just going to say, I feel like your brother would be so proud of you because you're really living in his legacy. The fact that you've raised more than $2 million and we're doing this today, and that's why this money is so important. And you have around 45 minutes left to donate.
Okay, well, thank you, Jackie. Jackie.